5 minutes.
Democrats in government, not the China virus, crushed small businesses and crushed our economy over these last 2 years. It was government that did that much more than the China virus. And it was Democrats in government who harmed our students and our children these past 2 years with their unjustified and harmful policies, doing irreparable harm to our students. We don't even talk about making up for the 2 years of lost learning. We pretend like it didn't happen, not to mention the damage to the social, mental, and emotional, psychological health of our children that they may never recover from. They'll be harmed for the rest of their lives. This, as my colleague, Ms. Miller-Meeks said, this is not a surprise. We said over these last 2 years in this very committee room and throughout our time in Congress that the schools should be open, that kids were not at risk from the China virus, that masks made no difference, and yet we still walk around this Capitol complex and see young people, young staffers, I guess they feel like they have to keep their jobs, wearing masks as they walk around when they're not at any risk from this virus. And kids shouldn't have ever been vaccinated because they were not at risk from the virus, and the vaccine itself was shown to be more harmful than the virus was to young children. The CDC said 2 years ago, at the onset of the virus, that it would take $25 billion to safely reopen the schools. But then the teachers' unions colluded with the Biden administration to keep moving the goalposts and delay letting kids back in the classroom, irrespective, again, of the harm, the irreparable harm that was being done. So Democrats here in this Congress joined the Biden administration in giving $200 billion, not the $25 billion that was originally requested, $200 billion to the schools. And yet the teachers' union still didn't want to return to in-person learning. And this very committee, over these last 2 years, refused and rejected Republican amendments that just said, hey, if we're going to give them all this money, let's make them come back to school. Let's make them reopen in person. Let's do what's best for, the children, the kids that we seem to talk about so much in this Congress. Teachers' unions don't have our children at the top of their priority list any more than rail unions have passengers or essential freight at the top of their list. We agree, as one of my friends from the other side just said a few moments ago, we agree that progressive liberal educators are responsible for the problems in our nation's schools. We agree on that. And school lockdowns cost decades of academic progress for our children, particularly for black students, who dropped 13 points in math, the latest numbers show. As a result of the Democrat lockdowns, 9-year-olds suffered a 7-point drop in math scores and a 5-point drop in reading scores compared to 2020. This is the largest decline in over 30 years, all of which is a direct result of the union-encouraged school lockdowns. 9-year-olds lost 20 years of academic progress, meaning children today are posting the same test scores in reading and math as children did 20 years ago. According to one report, also, emergency room visits for young girls for attempted suicides are 51% higher in the spring of 2021 than the same period 2 years ago. Lockdowns and shutdowns and school closures weren't just bad for students academically, they were bad for students' health. But good news, the teachers' unions did just fine. They got paid. They got lots of concessions. They got lots of money for things that had nothing to do with the virus or to improve the school facilities. And they didn't have to go to work every day and teach the kids in person. They did fine. But parents across the country, as they showed in Virginia last November, parents across the country have got the message loud and clear. They have found out what Democrat priorities are. They have found out what teachers' union priorities are, and the jig is up. Teachers' unions do not have the best interest of the students in mind. And again, this is why we need this oversight. And we need this information to hold this administration accountable for these damaging decisions. And I yield back.